We also have a special Public Safety Committee meeting as well. So what I'd like to do, colleagues, we're joined by David Rue and Joe Buscaino. We have quorum. What I'd like to do first is go ahead and take all cards on the regularly scheduled Public Safety Committee meeting, and then we will recess into the special and take all comment cards related to the special Public Safety Committee hearing. And that means that we will start with Eric Previn, who has filled out cards. General public comment.
Sorry, sir.
And then items 1, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. So
Mr. Chair, should I give him 3 minutes on?
Yes, 3 minutes total.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And my name is Eric Previn. I'm from Studio City. Misplaced my phone, but that's okay. Thank you. And I assume that Mr. Englander is okay. He's not here today, probably because of the Motorola item on the special meeting. But I wanted to hear the report on item 1, which is the matter where the sheriff provided a citizen assist and got on the wrong side of Mr. Buscaino, and I think we want to clear that up. I think the public is interested because we want compassionate law enforcement as much as we possibly can, and yet obviously he has some concerns, some valid concerns perhaps that need to be addressed. So I look forward to hearing about that. Soboroff is a tireless veteran who has been serving on the commission for a number of years. He's a great developer. He's out in Malibu pushing through a big I think it's a Whole Foods over at the Civic Center, despite tremendous community opposition. But he's a law enforcement guy through and through. In fact, he inspired me when he said early on, these body cams are amazing. Let's get into these body cams and quick. And he came up with $1 million or said he would get it. And obviously, subsequently, that rolled into the big Axon deal, formerly Taser, for up to $73 million, plus more the sprint, all the, right up to the top of the beaker on the Taser product. That did not result when we were the first year, folks really pushed through and make a big deal for them. We didn't get the rebate, which is incredibly upsetting to members of the public who follow this stuff. And that's why when Englander comes back from monitoring this from afar, he better step up to Uncle Harvey's office and get that $8 million. And if Mr. Berghoff only works for the body cams and doesn't know anything about the 4,400 tasers in the back of the truck, I don't believe that. I'll just be honest with you, I don't believe it. And the city of Los Angeles has been good to that group, and they ought to give us our money back. Okay. Thank you. Item 4, we're doing a little name change, just like Tazon Axar, but here it's inside the police garage area. It's Ross Baker. He's a longtime provider of service, so I don't see anything there. And finally, it's the street racing matter. And we all are disgusted by anybody who would think to take the highway or the road and turn it into a playground in the middle of the public's business. This is outrageous. So, but is that what's really going on? Because I have to say, both of these instances were out in Devonshire. Now, Devonshire is that's Englander's group. How can we not get control of this in a meaningful way? I think we have to reach out to the groups that are doing this. Something's missing. Something's missing because this makes a lot of news, and this is a problem. The other thing, and I'll just say it because I love the news. I watch the local news now. As a watchdog and a member of the community and press. We got to get out of the business of flying around in the helicopter, chasing guys in cars and motorcycle the other night, because it's very dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. And some of the departments and they realize that and they've made the appropriate adjustments. I would like to shut that down. We have the technology to get these people later, not currently, and then they don't go fast because they're not being chased. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. Do I get a general public comment?
All right, and so that closes our public comment for the regular meeting, and that we will recess into our special, and it looks like there are no comment cards. There are, okay, I just don't see them here. Oh, there we go. Okay, all right. All right, and so we'll recess into our special, and Mr. Previn, you have filled out a general public comment card for that as well, and then items 1, 2, and 3.
So will it be items, that'll be 3 more minutes, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
3 minutes for 1 minute for general and 2 minutes for everything else. Mm-hmm.
So let's notify staff that if they can't handle it, they could leave, because it is unpleasant, and I don't mean to be that way, but I just have to say what I think. So now we've got the Cry Wolf server matter for Motorola. This is a 2007 RFP for the fire alarm and police alarm systems. This can be easily described as a ripoff. Okay, this is what we call a ripoff because they're giving us a $214,000 discount. Now that's how you know that it would make sense to have competitive bidding. And I think David Rue knows that the old Motorola he had back in the day was a felt telephone, but subsequent to that we have incredible technology. And this has not been going that great, this service. So as I appreciate what Motorola has done because they do provide a quality product, I think they have to compete for that stuff. And in the portable radio area, you know, my head almost popped directly off as, you know, it was a little kumbaya with the guy from ITA here being asked to say I don't know what kind of stuff. And then we were making representations about the county's RFP, which, by the way, for the record, is coming back. There's another piece of that radio competitive part that's coming back, which I think we have to look at because there was a $10 million spread on what was bid, and they gave it to Motorola anyway. And what these guys do, and I have to give them credit because they're extremely functional in this category. What they do is they marginalize, they attack the competition, and they ingratiate themselves with, over at the county, it was the ISD, but there's a new guy there, so we're going to see. Here, as I mentioned, they have obviously Englanders doing an outstanding job of representing Motorola Solutions' interests. Now, again, they may be the best guys in the world for the job, but to get away with never competing by vanquishing credible, reasonable companies that come forward and then just it's not acceptable in the slightest, in my opinion. And I don't know what to say. They always say, oh, the reason why we can't have any more bidding is it's proprietary software. So competitive bidding process would not be applicable. I'm talking about an alarm system. I mean, this is not sending somebody to the moon. So I don't know who buys that? Now, item number 2 is a memorial statue. This is something a little more pleasant and respectful, and it's of a canine. It's a little pricey at $63,500 for the statue, but it's a donation, so that's not a problem. The one thing I would like to raise is, as a suggestion, creative suggestion, open-minded, let's unveil it. Let's have an unveiling. And we just had an unveiling. The Board of Supervisors went to Washington to unveil a portrait of Hilda Solis at the Secretary of Labor, the Labor Department, which is very moving and deeply moving. We have to get into whether or not we need to agendize that because they didn't agendize it, and yet all 4 of them, Mark Ridley Thomas was doing other business that was widely redacted for 2 days. Just, whoop, that's a big redaction. But who knows? I'm sure he was doing something for the folks. The last item number 3, is the MTA. You did it. You almost got me to not mention that we were jacking up the MTA deal from $363 million to $411 million. Are you crazy? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, that closes our public comment for the special Public Safety Committee meeting. Thank you. Colleagues, what I'd like to do is, on the special agenda, move items 1, 2, and 3 on consent. Move no objection.
And
that
Mr.
shall
Chair,
be the order. Yes?
We do have a technical correction
Okay.
for item number 3. It's to instruction number 2 requested by the City Administrative Officer, and it's a very simple one. It's the title and class code for the 13 police officer positions listed should be changed to police officer 2 positions with the class code of 2214-2.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll move item 1 and 2 on consent, and then item 3 with the stated amendment. All right. Yep. Move it. Yep. So that'll be the order, and that completes the special. Now let's go back to the regular meeting, and what I'd like to do before I turn it over to Mr. Buscaino is move items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Move the items.
On consent.
Second.
No objection. That'll be the order. Now, Mr. Espinosa, would you please read item number 1, and we will turn this over to Joe Buscaino.
Item number 1 is a motion from Council Members Buscaino, Englander, and Bonin relative to the request to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to investigate an incident that occurred in San Pedro on January 30th, 2018.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, colleagues, on January 30th, we witnessed through a home video that appeared in the social media networks a individual who was clearly mentally unstable being dropped off by the LA County Sheriff's deputies based out of the Lomita Station from the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. It was an alarming video that made headlines. We found later in the afternoon that the same individual was picked up by, or a radio call was generated 3 or 4 blocks down from where the individual was dropped off, and indicated that the residents there in the South Shores community called 911, dispatched both LAPD as well as the LA Fire Department. Both LAPD and the Fire Department made an assessment. The Fire Department responded, and the LAPD was able to address the incident by taking him into custody with a warrant. Colleagues, I've been an LAPD officer for 15 years, and one of the most challenging issues that I had to face as a street cop was dealing with the homeless situation, specifically those who have been dealing with mental illness, and trying to support them without having the proper tools available to us. And this here, what happened on January 30th, is a symptom of a larger problem, and we need better collaboration and coordination between our service providers as well as our local law enforcement agencies. Recently, my office worked with our council colleagues and Supervisor Catherine Barger to look at the redefinition of gravely disabled, and to expand the definition so that we can get these individuals medical care that they desperately need. Let me tell you this, colleague, the 5150 hold I found is a joke. We need to find a longer care solution to those who are mentally ill and homeless on our streets. In fact, the recent numbers showed that 30% of those living in our streets suffer from a mental illness. So we're not doing our job in working with the state and county. I mean, we are a municipal agency here. We don't control mental health dollars, but we need to do a better job in working with our county and state leaders. But I see in this incident that we experienced in San Pedro, and just know San Pedro is situated where we are surrounded by independent cities who contract with the sheriff department, cities who have their own police agencies. In fact, I'm working alongside my colleagues in the South Bay cities, councils of government, and chairing the homeless committee to do a better job of coordinating and collaborating with law enforcement agencies and service providers. But I see, based on what took place in January, an opportunity to work alongside law enforcement agencies around the region and first responders on how we address the homeless individuals who are suffering from mental illness. And I believe this will be an opportunity for us to get some answers, as the community and the residents of San Pedro demanded answers based on what they saw on the video, which was alarming. But I'm more focused on solutions and driving solutions to what took place in January. So we gave the Sheriff's Department, I was on the phone numerous times with Sheriff McDonald, who is a friend, and continue to support him. He was open and receptive to looking into it and calling for an investigation and wanting to give the Sheriff's Department some time to look into this incident. And we have before you representatives from the LA County Sheriff's Department. We also have Commander Choi, who is the LAPD's homeless coordinator, who's here, and Chief Everett with the LA Fire Department, who's here if we have any additional questions. But at this point, I'd like to call on the Sheriff's representative to come up. And my first question is, has the Sheriff's Department completed its official review of the January 30th incident?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, we have. This review is completed in March, and it was determined that our personnel acted within policy. Several deputies made contact with this individual throughout the day in response to calls from members of the public. In each instance, the deputies determined while he was apparently a transient and not violating any laws, he didn't fit the criteria for a 72-hour mandatory hold or involuntary hold for a mental evaluation. He was offered services, which he declined. During the last such encounter, the individual said he wished to return to the Pasadena area, and obviously our deputies couldn't drive him there. He said he had an MTA bus pass. They offered him a ride to a bus stop, which he accepted. However, during this ride to the bus stop, he became belligerent and demanded to be let out of the car. Our deputy pulled over as soon as it was safe to do so. She had no reason to detain him. He was there voluntarily, and she let him out of the car. We are confident in this case that our deputies acted appropriately and with compassion. As Councilmember Buscaino said, this incident highlights a complex issue faced by law enforcement and fire personnel in responding to calls for homeless and those suffering mental impairments. And as civic leaders, we all need to work together in finding a solution to deal with this issue. And I'd be happy.
Yeah, one moment. All right, that was a major disruption. Herman, okay, second one. All right, and he's not letting up, so I think it's time for him to go. I think it's time for you to go. Yeah. We'll see you downstairs when you disrupt the general meeting as well.
Unreasonable force against individuals with mental health disability, those in the crisis and fails to make reasonable accommodations. Keep your fucking hands off me, motherfucker! Fuck you, girl! Fuck you, Joe!
For the record, this happens at every committee meeting he attends, just for the record. Yeah. All right.
Sorry,
apologies.
Clearly, there's a mental illness issue, and that, even within these walls here. So, floor is yours, sir. Sorry about that.
Okay, I thank you for your time to address this, and I'm open to any questions you have that I can answer.
So, can you explain to us the policy regarding how this sheriff's deputy, handles or interacts with a homeless population?
Yes, we have a homeless policy. I've brought copies. If the committee would like to have copies, I can give them to them. Basically, it encourages offering services in lieu of arresting for low-level offenses, which is exactly what the deputies did in this case. The individual's warrant for his arrest was only $400. It did meet the threshold for us to book him in the LA County jail system. We would have to cite him out in the field. And so the deputies followed this policy exactly by offering services and in lieu of arresting for a low-level offense to offer, use the tools they had. It was a very difficult situation for them to deal with.
So deputies, like police officers, I mean, I was never trained to be a psychologist, psychiatrist. I've never had a mental health background. So how do deputies today, like our police officers, clearly identify if someone is suffering from a mental illness, paranoia, schizophrenia, and clearly this man was deranged. He was not all there, based on the video.
Clearly. He didn't appear to be gravely disabled. His behavior changed from moment to moment, it appears to me, because when he was coherent in most of the contacts they had with him and lucid and said, I'm not breaking any law. I just want to be here and look at the ocean. And then obviously later I saw the video. He appeared to be in great distress.
He disheveled, without shoes, pants down. Was there an opportunity for the deputies to reach out to a service provider? Because I know we have PATH now in the South Bay cities, thanks to our supervisor, Janice Hahn, who have PATH now in the South Bay cities, including the San Pedro area. Was there an attempt to reach out to a service provider?
Because he declined any help they offered, and he declined it. So they didn't reach out and try to force the issue.
So that continues to be an issue for those who refuse service and refuse help.
And many times that's the case with homeless individuals and people in mental distress. They will refuse.
So that was I understand that, and that's something that I dealt with for many years in dealing with those who suffer from a mental illness. Again, an opportunity for us to really work with the state to redefine how 5150 is handled in our state, because clearly 5150, the hold, it does not work today. Because I would say that 30% of those homeless who are suffering from mentally illness, that's a population that our residents around this region have the most trouble with. A lot of anger and frustration with those suffering from mental illness who deserve, and I feel need to be taken in for longer term care. But in this individual's, well, I feel that should have been taken in for a hold. What's the Sheriff's Department's policy regarding the use of patrol cars to transport civilians who are not under arrest?
If it's voluntary, we can transport civilians. In this case, it was voluntary. He asked for a ride.
Got it.
And like I said, the deputies were just trying to be compassionate and do the best they could. Our training has been increased regarding this immensely on the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff is committed to increasing our mental evaluation teams with a 24-hour triage desk, and that's been backed by the Board of Supervisors for funding. And as well as all our deputies are receiving crisis intervention training. 3 of the 4 deputies that had contact with this individual that day had already received the training.
And understand the individual wanted to be taken to Pasadena.
That's correct.
And so is there a policy that the sheriff's deputy can, I mean, we don't want LAPD and sheriffs to be an Uber. So is there a policy what the radius is and how to, because there was a bus stop at the corner of Palos Verdes Drive West and Hawthorne at that 7-Eleven in Rancho Palos Verdes. Were they confused on the 7-Eleven in San Pedro or the 7-Eleven in Rancho Palos Verdes?
No, because he wanted to go northbound to Pasadena, they decided to take him to Western Avenue.
Okay, and that was the only line that was,
I'm not sure about the bus
Okay.
lines, sir. I couldn't answer that accurately.
Okay. And the other thing that we struggle with was now this individual became and took a unit, an LAPD unit out of service in San Pedro because of the $400 warrant. So my understanding is the Sheriff's Department, if it's a misdemeanor warrant that doesn't meet a certain threshold, then they don't take them into custody because they'll be out within the next hour or two, correct?
That's correct.
So I feel it's just not fair for the other municipalities that are going to, you know, if it's Torrance PD or Redondo Beach PD or LAPD, now they're forced to take the problem out of the residents or out of the community, the neighborhood, but at the same time by fulfilling that warrant, we're removing a unit out of the field.
That's
So-
correct. You removed the unit. We removed to handle that issue. A unit was removed from the field. Obviously, it would be out of the question for us to transport them all the way to Pasadena. These deputies are contract city cars. They were assigned to the city of Rancho Palos Verdes.
So why couldn't they taken them into Men's County Jail for the warrant?
Because they wouldn't accept them for that low of a bail amount.
So the Men's County Jail won't accept $400 misdemeanor warrants?
No,
Only municipal jails would?
correct.
Does the Sheriff's Department provide a way to look up nearby open shelters, service centers for homeless individuals?
That's another area we're working on. As you mentioned, Supervisor Hahn's office has been great setting up PATH. We provide our deputies with that information, and it's many tools as we can get them. And with our mental evaluation teams, they have a sworn deputy and a clinician in a car together, and they will respond and do an evaluation, and it doesn't really necessarily have to always meet the threshold for a 5150 hold, because the clinicians will seek some voluntary treatment if we can get them in there.
And is the Sheriff's Department, you guys contract with cities around the county, right? And do you guys are you getting a lot of pressure from your contract cities to remove homeless individuals from certain parts of their respective cities and shuttle them? And
Not at all. Not at all. It's a complex issue for everybody. Everyone has concerns about homelessness, but it's a regional-wide problem.
Got it. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, I just want to, you handed out the Sheriff's Department policy on contact with homeless individuals, section 5-09/065.00. If I can direct your attention to that first paragraph, I would say last two lines. The referral process includes contacting homeless outreach experts and service providers to obtain temporary housing, medical, mental health, or other applicable services. Department personnel shall also respect an individual's right to refuse assistance. So you're telling me, sir, that the deputies made an attempt to reach out to outreach experts and service providers to obtain medical and mental health services?
No, I'm not. I'm saying they respected his right to refuse services. So
they were in policy based on the last line of your policy. Department personnel should also respect an individual's right to refuse assistance.
Yes.
And colleagues, this is why this is a challenge that not only the deputies face, but also LAPD officers face and other municipal law enforcement agencies face, that they can only do so much. When you look at how we, not enforce, but how we look at mental illness in the 5150 code today is just not working. And I'm happy to move forward on supporting, along with Supervisor Barger, the redefinition of gravely disabled, where involuntary, we can take an individual who's gravely disabled based on a medical condition and get that person longer-term care. 5150 in our city, in our region, clearly is doing a disservice to the most vulnerable in our region. I do have some recommendations, Mr. Chair, but unless any of the colleagues have questions, I'll defer to you, sir.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. And we were joined earlier by Monica Rodriguez. Welcome. And this, just to run a few things by you as well, and that is, this incident certainly highlights the deficiencies of 5150, if anything ever did. I just have a few questions related to the incident itself. It's been a while, but I remember seeing this on the news. Was this individual released? Had he been hospitalized, and was he released by the Sheriff's Department after being transported from a hospital?
Not that I'm aware of. After he was arrested, I don't know his status when he was released from custody.
So he was arrested somewhere else?
By Los Angeles Police Department.
By Los Angeles Police Department, and then he wanted to go to Pasadena, and then it sounds to me that in the squad car on the way to dropping him off perhaps at the bus stop, they had an episode or became belligerent and demanded to come out of the car. My question would be, why wouldn't that have been identified as something indicative of mental illness needing immediate attention? In other words, if someone who's being transported has some sort of mental episode, why would anyone in a responsible position just say, okay, you can leave and you're on your own? That seems irresponsible to me.
Well, as Councilmember Buscaino pointed out, the 5150 requires that they be a danger to themselves, a danger to others, or gravely disabled. So it's very difficult to work with.
For me,
and just because he's mentally impaired, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Just because he's mentally impaired, the deputies didn't believe he fit that criteria.
So for me, Mr. Chair, clearly, based on what I observed, he was not able to care for himself based on his appearance, barefoot, pants down to his knees. That's what I struggled with.
The images certainly would lead one to believe that as well. I just have a strong feeling that despite your terrific response here and your report to this committee, and we thank you for that, I just don't see how that absolves the Sheriff's Department of all responsibility for this incident. I just don't see it myself. So, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Buscaino, for bringing this to our attention. And this is one of the most frustrating things that we face. And having worked in a mental health hospital, our system sometimes feels like it's designed that unless you're sick enough, we can't help you. And this is why, I introduced the gravely disabled redefinition at the county, which we all eagerly signed to support our county supervisors in trying to expand that definition. And when we talk about gravely mentally ill, we're talking about 1% of the mental ill population. So it's not the folks we're talking about. And the even more frustrating with the 5150 is even if they get arrested on a 5150, which is that they're either trying to commit suicide or homicide, they could be on a 24-hour to 72-hour hold. I mean, if the attending physician feels that they need to be transferred to a 14-day facility, they can be. But if they are on a 72-hour hold because it's a more severe case, by law, every 24 hours, the attending physician at the emergency room has to come by and make an assessment again if this person feels better. And if that individual at the time of assessment answers all the questions calmly and correctly, then the attending physician has to let them leave, if they want to.
Yep.
So this is again why it's not just supporting the gravely disabled redefinition, but this is our LPS law. This is, it gets into the arena of patients' rights. It gets in the arena of defining what is sane, what is mentally ill. So it becomes into this hazy arena, which is beyond the scope of our city council. But I share in the frustration. This is why I love the fact that we are finally coordinated. Does it solve all problems? Of course not. But this is why the Sheriff's Department, LAPD, the Mental Health Department, the jails, our HOPE teams, the SMART teams are all integrated so that hopefully we can catch them. We can get them into services. But the biggest frustration is if they refuse services, we're almost bound and we can't do anything. So this is that, I am constantly trying to figure out ways, and I know many of us have spoken at lengths to figure out what we can do to better equip our outreach workers, our personnel to be able to help these individuals. But and the first step was gravely disabled. We first tried to redefine, expand that definition a bit, and after that's done, and that's a huge heavy lift, and I really commend Catherine Barger and the Board of Supervisors for doing that. But that's step one. But once that step is done, it becomes how else more can we possibly look at the whole LPS law?
Yeah.
Sure.
Colleagues, listen, this may be not the politically thing to say, but at the same time, we are seeing this every single day in our neighborhoods, in our streets, that if we don't, we need to find a way to bring back institutionalization, because to find a long care solution for these individuals. Just yesterday, I was on Spring, and I see an individual clearly not in the right mindset, urinating in public. It's not fair for our businesses, our residents, our families to be put through this each and every day, not only in the city, but throughout this entire region. And we need to find a way for long-term care. This 24-hour nonsense, 72-hour nonsense clearly is not working. And we're doing a disservice to these individuals that need the most help. So we do have Commander Choi here, who is working alongside. So, Captain, you're willing to work, let me put it this way, are you willing as, the Sheriff's Department, and I know the answer to this, but you're willing to work with LAPD, the Fire Department, LASA, LA County Fire, and other relevant departments to improve coordination, collaboration, communication on how law enforcement responds to homeless individuals?
Absolutely.
Great.
And Mr. Buscaino, basically, so and you're about to make your
Yeah, I have
recommendations
some
as well.
recommendations.
To deal with the findings in the report itself and work with the city on developing a better collaboration based on the findings. So,
Appreciate it. Yes.
Sure.
And Commander Choi, can you just come up and some of the recommendations that have been put forth through the homeless strategies and working with the county and the city of Los Angeles. One of the strategy number 3 is the no wrong door, 3A, 3B, 3C, the no wrong door strategy, which works on first responder training. How far have we come along with our first responder training with the city and county collectively?
Well, good morning, everybody. Dominic Choi, LAPD Homeless Coordinator. I think we've come a long way since the beginning of 2016 when this strategy was first announced. So by the end of 2016, this group, which consisted of LAPD, LASA, the sheriffs, the fire department, just multiple agencies, chose to use a standardized post-certified video that addressed first responders in dealing with individuals experiencing homelessness, kind of explain the stages of homelessness, what resources are available, how to contact those resources. It's a 2-hour video that everyone had access to and it was distributed to. Since December 2016, LAPD has incorporated it into their mental health intervention training. So in that training, which happens 2 times each month, we have our recruits that go out into the field, and 11 months later they come back for PSL, Police Sciences and Leadership Training. They get that MHIT training, so they see the video. And then you have the second course during the same month, which is for sworn personnel. They come in from the field and they get this course, which is 4 days. They get the video.
And this video is post-certified?
Yes.
So all statewide agencies can
Correct.
tap into this?
So in the production of the video, you have agencies all the way from Napa PD down to San Diego PD and everybody in between. LAPD was involved in it, the fire department was involved in it, LASA was involved in it. So you had law enforcement and social services all involved in the production, which was done by post.
And just to interject real quick, we're going to have to bring it right back to the item itself. Otherwise, we're straying outside the boundaries of legal boundaries here.
Okay. So the video is shared with all agencies. We are coordinated with the Sheriff's Department, LA County Fire, LAFD, LAPD, and our service providers to learn about. So we learn about what social workers do. They learn about what law enforcement does, what fire does. So I think the mutual training has come a long ways. We will continue, LAPD will continue with this training. I think our goal is in about 2.5 years to have all first responders trained up with MHIT and have seen this video.
Got it.
With the MHIT courses, we also invite outside agencies, and I guess this is how we bring it back to this topic. Outside agencies are involved in our MHIT training, and they are getting exposed to this video and our mental health intervention.
Well, I know law enforcement agencies have done a good job in this region to work hand in hand on crime trends, because we often say that crime has no boundaries. Homelessness today has no boundaries. So I think we need to, I'm happy to hear the collaboration moving forward based on these recommendations from the homeless strategies. So I do have some recommendations and
Mr. Buscaino,
some
Mr.
directions.
Rue
Go
would
ahead.
like to weigh in one more time. And Ms. Rodriguez, any? No? All right. Dave.
I just wanted to end on a positive note. The thing is, when it comes to this individual, we're the city of LA, we're restricted in so many ways, but this is why if that individual did want services, we want to make sure that that individual has a place to go. And that's why, we at the City Council have committed to building not just 222 permanent supportive housing units in each one of our districts, but all these different facilities. Because, right now we're really upset about the 5150 process and how we can't help these individuals. But even if reform happens and these individuals, we have the ability to actually get them voluntary or involuntary treatment, our facilities are all full. So, which is why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing to move forward on this homeless crisis, building whether it's shelter, temporary housing, bridge housing, permanent supportive housing, affordable housing, so that when people start accepting services, that we have the ability to put them somewhere. So, and that's what we have that's what we're committed to doing, and that's the positive end. Because right now, if everybody came in for services, we won't be able to take them all.
Absolutely.
Oh, Ms. Rodriguez.
Yes, no, thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thank you. I know that this has continued to be an evolving conversation, and when we've talked about the progress, I feel optimistic about it. And the reason why I do is since I've joined the City Council and worked very closely just in focusing in my district with all the multitude of agencies, municipal agencies. I have a homelessness task force in my district where we've brought everybody together to have that conversation on a block by block basis, because the reality is it's a difficult conversation, and none of us have been put in the primary business of confronting this very difficult issue. So I really want to, as difficult as it is, I appreciate your presence here today to have this difficult conversation, but really it's an opportunity for us to make better policy. I think to David's point, and I think you make an outstanding one, the challenges that we face just in terms of the capacity, given the crisis that we are facing, it feels insurmountable. And I think, again, we make inroads, and every time we make inroads, we feel like we've had the setback. But I really look forward to our continued engagement and collaboration together to help address this issue. I know our officers, they're not our mental health service workers.
Right.
That is not their primary function, and yet they've been put in this circumstance because of the challenges that we face on a daily basis for our residents and as it relates to public safety. So I really, I appreciate the collaboration and the willingness to help be a part of how we've assembled both the city and the county resources to be wholly focused. Because I know if there's one thing that I do know, I've never seen this level of collaboration between the city and county before on a particular issue, and I'm optimistic that I think we'll help to find the right balance in this. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Recommendations, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you. So Captain Dan Banninger, thanks again for your presence. Commander Choi, thank you for your presence. And Captain Banninger, thanks for your testimony as well. I'm also happy to hear the county finding ways and moving forward on bringing these types of mental service providers to our county jails. It hasn't been done yet. I know they're working on a budget, and monies should not be an issue anymore. Measure H. So hoping to see these resources in our county jails very soon. So with that, I'd like to make three recommendations. One is to direct the LAPD and the LA Fire Department in coordination with the LA County Sheriff's Department and LA County Fire Department to report on the development of a training program and implementation plan for law enforcement, fire departments, and paramedics on standardized first responder training for the homeless. Two, direct the LAPD and LA Fire Department in coordination with the LA County Sheriff's Department, LA County Fire Department to report relative to reducing homeless-related non-emergency hospital admittance and jail intake by expanding first responder pilot programs, extending geographic distribution of these teams, more closely integrated with county health to determine and increase the availability of beds for the severely mentally ill, exploring the incorporation of healthcare professionals in SMART teams, and developing stronger links to the coordinated entry system. Three, direct the LAPD to work with the Sheriff's Department and nonprofit partner agencies to expand jail-in reach to make it available to all homeless people incarcerated at the LA city and county jails. That would be my three directions, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and I don't see any objections to those recommendations, so it looks like we will move this forward based on the three recommendations from Mr. Buscaino. Without objection, that shall be the order. Mr. Espinosa, do we have anything else on the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, that completes the meeting. Thank you so much.